do you believe that your health is going to get better? And when I say believe, I mean, do you truly believe that your health is going to get better from where you're currently at? There's a lot of, so what we're going to talk about today is kind of woo-woo, okay? It's the stuff that everybody says, that doesn't really work. But we're going to change your perspective a little bit with some different approaches to this. And one of the best-selling financial books of all time is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, right? And the whole concept in this is what you think you can achieve, you can achieve. One of the famous quotes from it is, whatever you can conceive and believe, you can achieve. So if you can come up with it in your mind and you can actually believe that it is a possibility, you're going to achieve it, is essentially what that book says. And that's brought in law of attraction and all these different things. And a lot of this stuff has become, kind of strange. Like it's not looked at as mainstream because a lot of it is, hey, I just need to think about it and then it will just magically come into my life. And that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about actually believing that you're going to get healthier. And the reason that this is so important is because if you could actually believe that you're going to get better, you're going to take those actions. And we're going to take it a step further and we're going to dive into a bunch of different research to bring this into reality for you. So again, taking that first step and really looking at what your beliefs are. Are you actually believing that you are going to get better, or are you just hoping that you get better? Because they're two totally different things. If you're just sitting there and hoping, it's not going to happen, right? That's where most people go wrong with the law of attraction is they sit there and they're like, I hope I get rich someday. I hope I get healthy someday. I hope that this happens. I hope that happens. It doesn't matter what the hope is, but when you hope that something happens, nothing happens, right? When you know that something is going to happen, that's when you make changes. That's when you start taking the actions that are necessary to take you to that next step. And we're going to mix multiple different authors in on this to help you get to where you want. So the first one that I really want to dive into is the Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. And in the Biology of Belief, it's basically talking about the things that happen because of our beliefs. And ultimately what he talks about is epigenetics. And one of the examples that he gives is when he was a researcher at the University of Wisconsin Medical University. He had some blood that he was looking at, and all of a sudden it changed. Like he'd just taken the sample, he's looking at it under the microscope, and all of a sudden it just changes. And this caught his curiosity, so he called the person whose blood he was looking at, and they had just gotten into a car accident. So despite being miles away, the blood actually changed the moment that they got into a car accident. And this fascinates him because, that's kind of a crazy story, right? Miles away, blood is already outside the body, but when they get under that psychological and that, just stress state, the biology of their blood, the chemistry of their blood changes miles away. Kind of a cool thing. But again, if you're like me, you're looking at it and you're like, okay, now did that really happen, or did he imagine that happened? Was it coincidence? Like what is the confounding factor here? Because that alone doesn't give you a lot of stuff to go on, right? But it is interesting. There's no denying that is an interesting story. When you look at it a little further in like Joe Dispenza's books, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about becoming superhuman or whichever one you want to talk about, Joe Dispenza uses a lot of meditation in his practice. So in his books, he talks about how meditation actually goes through and it changes your epigenetic expression. Now, when we're talking about genes, we're talking about the blueprints in there. When we're talking about epigenetics, they're like the light switch on there. So if you have your light switch on the wall, the light switch itself is the gene. When we have the epigenetic markers, it determines if that light switch is on or if that light switch is off. And big difference on this. So a good example of this in real life would be the BRAC gene, the breast cancer gene. There are many people that have this gene, and it is not expressed. The minute it becomes expressed, you start to develop that, right? So do you have breast cancer? No. Do you have breast cancer if that's turned on? You could. Yeah, it starts to express itself. So that's the difference between them. If you have good epigenetic markers, you're going to experience good health. If you have negative epigenetic markers expressed, you're going to have negative health. That's just the way it goes, the on and off switch. So think about it in that way. And what he really does is he takes people and he goes through and he says, this is what I want you to do, is just focus on these things. And he turns down the awareness of all of the extra confounding factors, the pain that they're currently experiencing, the fatigue that they're currently experiencing, all these other things. He turns that down in their mind, and he turns up some of these positive things. Them imagining that they're feeling better, them imagining themselves doing different things. And visualization is a very powerful thing. We've known that from sports for many, many years. They talk about people who practice shooting free throws. If they actually practice mentally shooting free throws, they can go out and they do better, or well, they do as good as somebody who has practiced. They do better than somebody who has not practiced either, mentally or physically. But they do better, or it's very similar to those who have actually physically practiced free throw shooting if they just mentally visualize themselves free throw shooting. Same thing happens with piano. If somebody goes through and they practice piano, they show similar improvement to those who just close their eyes and imagine playing the piano. It's kind of cool, right? It gives you some power to do some different things there. But same thing is happening here with what Joe Dispenza is doing. He is showing people mentally that they are feeling better. He's showing them the expression of them going out and being active and them not being fatigued and them doing the things that they want. And then they actually have that biology expressed. They're showing improvement because even though they might not be able to lift weights right now, they can imagine themselves lifting weights and they could show a little bit of improvement. They can imagine themselves running and they could show a little bit of improvement. And as crazy as that sounds, it does work. And they're not the only ones that are going about this. Benjamin Hardy talks about your epigenetics basically take your experience and they make them into your biology. So if you have a positive experience, you experience better health because you have that. If you have a negative experience, so if you're sitting there and you're thinking, I'm not going to get better, or I'm going to continue to get worse, I'm going to have more pain, I'm going to have whatever your negative thing is, that gets expressed in your beliefs. So whatever you think about becomes your reality. So who was it? Henry Ford, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. So if you think you can do it. If you think you can't, you're not going to be able to do it. It's another great quote. But when we're looking at health, a great way to bring all of these together is to use a different variety of these. So Benjamin Hardy talks about looking into the future, deciding what you want, making it bigger, and then trying to achieve it. And his whole philosophy on this is if you take what you want and then you make it 10 times bigger than what you originally had it, there's only a few things that are going to get you there. You know exactly what you're going to have to do to get it. It's a great point. When you combine that with the meditation and visualization that Hardy also talks about, but we'll look at Joe Dispenza on this, you start actually sitting down and imagining yourself doing those things. You imagine yourself taking those actions. When you imagine yourself taking those actions, you're more likely to do it in real life. And this is why I like my patients to understand exactly what we're doing. If they understand what we're doing, then they're more likely to take the action that's necessary to get them to the point that they want to go. Same thing goes on in here. If we can actually get people to see where they want to go, they're more likely to get there. So as crazy as it sounds, do you actually believe that you're going to get healthier? Do you believe that your health is going to continue to get better? Or do you believe that your health is going to continue to get worse? You may think that it doesn't matter at all, but I promise you, and there are tons of other books and research out there. There's tons of other authors that have it. I've got just notebooks full of different types of research that we could correlate together with this. And that may be maybe I need to get a life, but I've got tons and tons of this research that we could put together and we can make an action plan on how to do this. But you've got to actually believe it. If you don't believe that you're going to get better, you're not going to get any better. So sit down and look, what exactly do I want from my future? Do you want to have more energy? Do you want to have less pain? Do you want to be cured of whatever chronic disease it is? And then start visualizing what that's going to look like in your mind. What are you going to do? If you have more energy, what actions are you going to take? What in your life that's not going on right now is going to change? Are you going to golf more? Are you going to play with your grandkids more? What are you going to start doing? If you have less pain, are you going to take your grandkids out and do things? Are you going to travel? What are you going to do? If you don't have this chronic disease, what is your life going to look like? Start visualizing those things. And once you visualize those things, start taking action. Because it doesn't happen unless you take action. But you have to believe it. If you can see it and you can believe it, then you're going to start taking action. That's the big thing that we need to shift. Is a lot of people don't believe it. They say, yeah, sure, I'm going to get better. I know I'm going to get better. But they don't really believe it. There's no conviction in what they're saying. And if they don't believe it, they're not really going to take the actions. They're just going to sit there and hope that things get better. And there's a big difference between hope and belief. I hope this helps you. I hope that this helps you, because I looked at this in the very beginning and I'm like, that's just weird stuff. Like the law of attraction, it doesn't work. Like that's just weird. And I still believe that the law of attraction itself does not work. I fully believe that the law of attraction does not work. But I do believe that if you put yourself into a position where you believe that something is going to happen and you start becoming that person, then it is attracted to you. So as you start to do things that move you in that direction, opportunities present themselves that would have never presented themselves in any other way to help you get to your goal. It's like, a lot of people look at their success, and those that are the most successful look at life and they're like, man, it's like everybody else is conspiring for me to be successful. Those that are less successful look at life and they're like, it's like everything's conspiring against me. It's making it more difficult for me to be successful. But that feeling of everything conspiring for me to be successful is really those people opening up their mindset. They're opening up their vision and they're seeing different opportunities. They're seeing things in a different way. And when they can see things in a different way, they take different actions. And when they take those different actions, they start compounding and they start moving people in the right direction. It's just like your savings account. When you have a savings account and you start getting that compound interest working your same way, it works just as powerfully as those that work against you if you have a bunch of debt. So we've got to get the ball rolling in your direction, but you've got to have that belief. If you have that belief, it's going to change your life. So I hope that this is helpful for you. If this is helpful for you, like the video, share it with a friend, one of the others, subscribe to the channel. I mean, whatever, just let me know that it's helpful for you and share it with somebody else. Because this is where a lot of people are being held back, is they don't believe that they can change. And that's a bad place to be. Because if you don't believe that there's any hope that you're going to change, you're not going to change. It's not only going to get, it's going to get more difficult for you. That's the sad part. It's going to get more and more difficult for those people. So I love y'all. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. And I look forward to catching you on the next video.